Ông Edmund Malesky là giáo sư kinh tế của trường đại học trước, một trong những trường đại học danh tiếng của Hoa Kỳ. Quá trình ông đến với Việt Nam đã có từ cách đây gần 20 năm, khi ông đến Việt Nam để thực hiện luận án tiến sĩ của mình tại Đại học Harvard. Cũng trong quá trình làm luận án tiến sĩ đó, ông đã kết hôn với một cô gái tại Đà Nẵng. Từ năm 2005, ông được biết đến ở Việt Nam với tư cách là một trong những người đưa ra và thực hiện ý tưởng đánh giá năng lực cạnh tranh cấp tỉnh của Việt Nam PCI. Dự án này do Phòng Thương mại Công nghiệp Việt Nam phối hợp với Cơ quan Phát triển Quốc tế Hoa Kỳ USA thực hiện. Đây là một ý tưởng đột phá để lần đầu tiên các tỉnh có thể nhìn lại môi trường kinh doanh của mình trong tương quan so sánh với các tỉnh khác ở Việt Nam. Liên tục hàng năm trong 11 năm qua, chỉ số PCI đã trở thành một trong những tiêu chí đánh giá mức độ tiến bộ trong môi trường đầu tư và kinh doanh của các tỉnh. Cũng liên tục trong 11 năm, Malesky đều đặn quay trở lại Việt Nam để tiếp tục thực hiện chỉ số này, cũng như những dự án nghiên cứu khác. Trong chương trình Tôi và Việt Nam, chúng ta sẽ được nghe đồng tác giả của chỉ số này chia sẻ về những ý tưởng, sự hình thành, những thách thức khi thực hiện, cũng như những kỳ vọng trong tương lai.
Xin chào mừng quý vị và các bạn đến với chương trình Tôi và Việt Nam trên kênh truyền hình FBNC, phỏng vấn ông Edmund Malesky. Hi, Professor Malesky. I did not expect you look so young. Should I call you Professor Malesky or Ed or Eddie?
Eddie, everybody in Vietnam calls me Eddie. I don't even respond to Edmund or Dr. Malesky anymore. Just Eddie seems to be what everybody feels comfortable with here. So yeah, Eddie's just fine. Thank you.
Okay. Now you are quite well known in Vietnam. Can you talk about the very first time you came to Vietnam? Did you have another choice of where to go at that time?
I did. So at that time, the first time I came to Vietnam was 1997. I was a loose scholar, which is the scholarship in the United States that allows a small group of Americans to work in Asia. And they gave me three choices. They said, you can work on a microcredit project in the Philippines. And microcredit, that was really interesting and seemed like a fun thing to do, but the Philippines, I wasn't very excited about that. And they said, you could be a copy editor for the People's Daily in China. And I said, well, China, that's kind of new and exciting, but copy editor, oh, that seems really boring. And then they said, you can work at the first business school in Hanoi, Vietnam. So at National Economics University. And so that sounded really exciting. The first business school, this was 1997. Things were still pretty new, especially in Hanoi, about market reforms. And then second, Vietnam. For an American, that was a really exciting place that at that time very few Americans had visited or knew much about. So it was really a great opportunity, and it was that led me to Vietnam, and that has essentially launched my career. Yeah.
I see. About the idea of contributing to the development of Vietnam, it had come before you came to Vietnam, or during the research, or after you got married to a Vietnamese American girl?
Yeah. My wife, I'm sure, would like to take credit for, and she certainly has played a big role in helping me learn a lot about Vietnam and Vietnamese culture. But no, I think that the first time I came here to Vietnam was when I realized, I think I came to the idea that, look, the Vietnamese people are really creative, entrepreneurial, energetic, and hardworking people. And you just feel it when you're here. If at that point, if you could just change a few things, if you could suggest a few reforms that essentially liberated that entrepreneurialism and let Vietnamese people do what they do best, you could just sense the opportunities that would be available if you did that. And so I think my ideas about development in Vietnam have really just come from sort of seeing that opportunity. It's also come a lot, as I've been coming back to Vietnam for so many years, 20 years now, I have a lot of Vietnamese friends. I interact with my wife's family, of course, and so I hear about these interesting difficulties or problems that they face in their everyday life or in their businesses. And so a lot of my ideas for research topics have come from those types of conversations.
I see. And talking about the PCI, was it the new concept and methodology, or it had been applied somewhere else in the world?
So there had been other global indexes. So the World Bank had a global governance index that was mostly based on surveys, and there had been a global competitiveness index that was based on a single survey done in the capital cities of countries. There had never been something like a sub-national governance index where you ranked the different provinces and put them together. And our methodology was also a little bit different in that we there's a big kind of silly debate among academics about whether an index should be based on soft data. These are perceptions questions about how businesses feel or think, and hard data, which is real data collected from government agencies that's accurate and isn't biased by perceptions. And in the PCI, we said that's a silly debate. An index actually needs both. It needs the hard data, but it also needs perceptions of issues like corruption or transparency, which are harder to measure with hard data. So that's where it came from, yeah.
So in the World Economic Forum, the Global Competitiveness Index includes the very basic factors such as infrastructure, location, size, etc. Yeah. However, in the PCI, only government-based factors were chosen. So what is the purpose of choosing only such factors?
Okay, so I think it's useful to travel back a little bit to 2000 when we were first thinking about the PCI. So the issue here was that there were a lot of provinces that were having difficulty attracting investment, and they were essentially ignoring the domestic private sector. They were trying to get big foreign companies. And so they were saying, well, we don't have the infrastructure to attract big foreign companies. And one of the things that we wanted to do with the PCI was to essentially incentivize them to think about growing the domestic sector that was already there. So that's the first point, is that we were trying to change the orientation. The second thing was, infrastructure. A lot of the infrastructure in Vietnam, one is the legacy of previous periods, right? Infrastructure that was rolled out during the French, or infrastructure was rolled out in the 70s and 80s. Or third, infrastructure like the Highway 1, which is a central plan. And if it doesn't seem fair to rank a province because it happens to be located next to a highway that the central government built. What we do is we present the index and we call it an economic governance index, but then we also make that other data available, data on infrastructure, data on human capital, and that's so investors can make decisions, because investors might care a lot about that. So that doesn't go on our index, but if you wanted to look at our resources and make an intelligent investment decision that included both proximity to markets and endowments and governance, then you could make an educated decision that had all of those characteristics.
I see. Thank you. We should take a short break and get back in a few minutes. Thưa quý vị, vừa rồi là phần 1 của chương trình Tôi và Việt Nam trên kênh truyền hình FBNC, phỏng vấn giáo sư Edmund Malesky đến từ trường Đại học Duke, Hoa Kỳ về chủ đề chỉ số năng lực cạnh tranh cấp tỉnh tại Việt Nam, hay còn gọi là PCI. Chúng tôi xin phép được quay trở lại trong vòng ít phút nữa. Xin chào.